Thank you. Thank you, Robot. All right, everyone. So thank you so much for joining. I appreciate you making the time. I really hope that I can provide some useful information for you. I will provide my contact, my personal email, just so if you have any questions about anything in any way that I can help, I would really, just reach out to me and I'll try to help any way I can. So
Glenn, really quickly, before you jump into everything, thank you so much for being here. And I think Dwayne was going to introduce the series real quick.
Oh yeah, sorry. Just so excited. I was just.
Welcome everyone. My name is Dwayne Wesley. I'm the Department Chair of Computer and Information Sciences here at San Diego Mesa College. We are very fortunate today to have a representative from Qualcomm come and speak to us regarding his experience in the industry with the intent of shedding some light, illuminating the reality of industry, what it's like, and also to help you understand how you might find a way of getting into the industry. What opportunities there are out there that you might consider looking into. And to that, we have Shawn Fawcett, who she's our representative here at MESA for the Strong Workforce Office. Our department works very closely with them, and they are actively helping us fulfill our mission, which is to create a path for success for students. And of course, that success includes having access to industry, being able to prepare and gain access to industry opportunities. So Shawn, could you please tell us a little bit more about the Strong Workforce and what you're responsible for?
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Shawn Fawcett. I am one of the work-based learning coordinators and also a work experience coordinator at Mesa College. I am under Strong Workforce, but part of the work-based learning program. Our role on campus is to help students connect what you're learning in the classroom and apply that through the real world. And so we do that in a variety of ways. We work one-on-one directly with students to help you with the career exploration process, but we also partner with faculty for programs like this to bring industry speakers onto campus or Zoom virtually during COVID. We also do workplace tours and help students find hands-on experience and prepare for the workforce, whether that be through resumes or cover letters, also getting direct experience through internships, work experience, service learning. So I'll go ahead and put Work-Based Learning's website in the chat, so check us out. But if you have any questions about your career or getting connected with industry professionals or finding some sort of employment, please contact us and we're happy to support in any way. And like Dwayne said, we are very excited to have our CISC Speaker Series today. I will let Dwayne go ahead and introduce our speaker. And I know you all are super pumped to have Qualcomm represented today. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. And before I do that, I just want to reiterate that the chat is closed for the full participants. But if you do have a question, we will be taking those from the audience. So please make sure to submit them through the chat. And then we'll have Professor Wesley be able to ask our speaker directly. And we'll give you a shout out of who the question is coming from. So you'll have the opportunity to ask directly. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shawn. So again, welcome to everyone. I'm so happy to have you all here, and I'm particularly happy to have our representative from Qualcomm. Please, I share the welcome with all of you of our speaker today, Glenn Oberlander. Glenn,
all right,
take it away.
All right, thank you, Dwayne and Shawn. All right, so yeah, again, my personal contact. I will give that sometime in this presentation, so please reach out. So, and I want to provide a disclaimer. Everything that I'm going to say is strictly my opinion and my observations of my experience so far, of starting from Mesa, going to university, ending up at Qualcomm, and things like that. So it is one single anecdotal piece of evidence. It is definitely not gospel. So take what I have to say and compare it to the opinions of others, and then do your best to formulate your own. Because without opinions, what are we, right? So what did I do at Mesa and City? I just tried to look for as many computer science courses as I could find and took what fit my schedule. When I made this decision that I wanted to try it out, I wanted to get a feel for computer science world. What can I do? So I found some C++ courses from sort of recommendations from my friends. What type of courses should I take? C++ was really pushed because of the object-oriented programming philosophy, I'll say, is extremely important. It is such an effective way to program, but we can talk about that later. So I took several C++ courses. I took a web dev course, maybe one or two. I took a hardware/software course, which was involving programming Arduinos, which, talking with Dwayne earlier, hopefully will come back maybe in the spring when you can be more hands-on and everyone can be in the classroom, because you definitely need that for something like that. So that was mostly the course content that I remember that contributed a lot for me. And that was pretty much it. Other courses I took were just extracurricular fun things that I was interested in, like music production or music class, whatever, just hobby stuff. So then as far as what I got involved with, there is a robotics club that I hope is still there. I haven't really kept touch with it, but there's a robotics club where they participate in a submarine competition, an autonomous submarine competition, where they use computer vision to navigate this course underwater. And if whoever completes it the fastest and also can navigate to these special little locations to get bonus points can win. So that was a really cool experience for me, and that helped a lot sort of get more familiar with what happens in the industry, because you're using these industry tools and trying to make this submarine navigate the world, and you're also working with all kinds of different people, and it's a great networking avenue. And I really like that. That was really, really fun. And I might even, give back in a way of, being a part of that club again. But another thing that I did was a hackathon. I only did one, but I wish I had done more, because that was also really fun. Tons of people there. You basically are in a group of 4 or 5 people and you're trying to solve a problem together. Maybe some of you already been to hackathon, so you're aware of this, but that was really great for me. And I learned a lot, and it was just fun and great networking. And that word will come up a lot and will come up later in just a bit, and how important it is to network in order to get a job. So we're going to go right into work. Okay, so getting a job as a student, to me, I would say there are 2 ways. There's the brute force approach, and then there is the elegant approach. The brute force approach, these are both keywords that you use in the computer science world or development world. A brute force is basically, it's a brute force algorithm where you solve a problem in the clunkiest, most time-consuming way possible, but it gets the job done. That's all that matters, is that it gets it done. And so for me, a brute force approach to applying to jobs is endlessly applying to internships and jobs, filling out the forms, going on Indeed.com, going to ZipRecruiter, going onto all these random websites to find potential opening positions, fill out the form endlessly, typing in your name hundreds of times. That to me is just so tedious, and it works. It really does work, as tons of people have gotten jobs that way. But to me, that's an annoying approach. Some of that also includes that you need to practice leak code problems and to practice whiteboard problems, which sometimes some people might question, how much does that actually relate to the job? How important is that really? And I think in some cases, some companies, it will be important if you have a job that's very algorithmically heavy, especially like a math heavy type of job, then it does make sense to do those sort of leak code problems and whiteboarding those solutions. But sometimes they're just gateways to filter out people. Okay. And I personally don't always agree with that. But like I said, there are some cases where it fits and it works. But there is a bonus that some companies don't have these types of interviews. They won't have the whiteboarding, these leak codes. They'll ask more behavioral questions, because in my opinion, there's nothing too technical that you can't learn with enough time and effort. There's plenty of documentation all over the web. There's plenty of resources and people that you can reach out to help you learn some technical tool. However, the behavioral and the emotional intellect and the social intellect and the skills involved in working and pursuing something difficult, and all of that is trained over many, many, many years of experiencing hardship or trying things and failing or interacting with people and learning social skills and things like that. Those things you can't teach so quickly or as quickly as a technical. So I think I have a reference that lists, it's a GitHub page of all these jobs that have behavioral questioning as opposed to leak code questioning. A lot of the big companies like Amazon and Apple, and I don't know if Qualcomm did because I didn't get the job that way. And I'll talk about that. Apple, Google, they all have those very hard code interviews, and it can be worth it. You're right. It's great to have Amazon on your resume or Apple on your resume, but maybe that's not your cup of tea, and you don't have to do the code interviews. You can go the behavioral route. There are companies out there that care more about that. So just keep that in mind.
Excuse me, Glenn.
Yeah.
We have a student, Matthias, who's wondering, you mentioned the importance of the C++ language, particularly given its focus on object-oriented programming.
Yeah.
How would you compare C++ with Java? Would Java be a replacement for C++ in industry opportunities, or what would be the advantage of C++ over Java, in your opinion?
Yeah. So first of all, they both teach object-oriented programming. So they are both good in that way. They will both help you understand those concepts and how helpful it'll be to just think of a problem in a categorical fashion. You can separate these different types of components about a problem into the different classes, and it helps you deal with the problem in a piecewise function. So those are both great in that way. Personally, it seems that C++ is better than Java in that C++ is generally perceived to be faster. It's a little bit more agnostic or portable because all you need is really a compiler, while Java, you need runtime engines and things like this. Unfortunately, I don't have too much experience with Java, so I can't comment too much on how useful Java is, but it personally seems like Java's kind of slowly going out of utility. It seems like C++ is more significant, but that is totally just my observation. I'm not entirely sure. So hopefully that answered your question, Matthias.
Thank you.
Yeah. So now the elegant approach. To me, the elegant approach is doing something in a sophisticated way. And you'll hear people talk like, oh, that code is very elegant. And that basically just means is you see a line of code that just looks very clean and looks very smart. There's a lot going on in that line, but it's very smart. And when you look at it, you're like, wow, that's actually well done. Bravo. To me, the elegant way of getting a job is networking, because you don't have to spend endless amounts of time applying to jobs and hoping that you'll get an interview and maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't. To me, the networking is you find someone that you relate to, that you connect with, that you talk with. Either it's the same, someone of your similar age, or an older, maybe a professor or someone you meet. You can keep them in mind for when the moment that you feel you're ready, that you feel that you're competent and that you can provide something, you can reach out to them and say, hey, I'm in this position. I'd really love any opportunity I can get. And I will read the exact email, because let me step back. That is how I got the job at Qualcomm. Is I was at Mesa College, and I was in a class with a professor, and he dropped the Q word, and I just kept it in my mind. I said, okay, he works at Qualcomm. I know that's a good company. Let me keep that in mind. So I kept up my networking, did hackathons, did the Robotics Club. And then when I was into my bachelor's about a year and a half, I felt pretty confident, and I tried to apply to internships and stuff. I said, I don't want to do this, and so I reached out to my reference, and I exactly said, I applied to all the Qualcomm internships, talent pool positions that I could find. I will work in any field. I do not care. I just want to get in the field of developing technology and start to learn some ropes. Do you happen to know anyone I could reach out to for increased of getting an interview or anything? Obviously, you would be a resource, but I don't know if I would provide much in your field or if I should reach out to someone else. If you could help me out, I would appreciate it greatly. So I sent that email to my reference, to the person that now this professor, I took, I believe 3 courses with him, 2 C++ courses and the Arduino course. And I made sure to perform very well in those classes, because I wanted him to know that I was capable and to show that I have ability to get things done. And when I reached out to him, he said, okay, meet me here. And I met at Qualcomm and I interviewed with one of his managers. And then I eventually became an engineer technician, which I will talk about in just a moment. So to me, the elegant solution to finding a job is the best solution, but some of us aren't always so lucky to be in that position. I know some people, especially in this computer science field, people are very introverted and they're hesitant to talk, but really try your best to put yourself out there and just reach out to professors, talk to them, show that you're interested in this field. If you legitimately are, I really like this field and it's become something I just genuinely love. And so show that interest, show your effort, and it will pay off. It's sort of the long, yeah.
Excuse me, Glenn. I have another question, but before I ask that, I also want to put another plug in for our Strong Workforce Office, because for those students who aren't lucky enough to have connections that they can follow up on, that's what the Strong Workforce Office is for. So go to them, and they may be able to help you. They may be able to make the difference in terms of your gaining access to an industry opportunity. We have a question from Jeffrey Harding, and he wants to know, how important is math with regard to working in industry? And he's thinking particularly with calculus or discrete math for programming.
That is a really great question. And I will comment on it now, and I'll also comment a little bit more later when we talk about a master's and a doctorate. But yeah, I think personally, I think math is important, but I think most of the jobs that you might do aren't going to require calculus and things like that. Because right now I'm doing a web development app within Qualcomm, which Qualcomm is a very electrical engineering heavy company, and they're developing microchips. So I fit a little niche pocket in Qualcomm. And to answer your question, I think math is important just because math is just so useful in so many other areas. If you wanted to expand yourself beyond just being in a bachelor's and working in a simple company doing simple things, then I think increasing your math skills, whether it be linear algebra or I guess linear algebra, probability and statistics, since machine learning is becoming very, very big, that can be something quite useful. But even with computer or with self-driving cars, there's a lot of math involved. And I would say math is important, but it's not a make or break. I think I got my bachelor's from Oregon State University, and they didn't require any prerequisite major math. Like I didn't need to have calculus or anything like that, because they understood that majority of these development positions don't require heavy math. So it really just depends on what section or sector you want to go into. But I think math is just cool and it can be useful. So
I have another question from Alexis Sanders.
Yeah.
And I was curious about how did you know, what was the process of you realizing that you were in love with this field? Was it after a few classes, or was it before you started taking classes? And he shares his personal experience that he says he took a free class before and he really liked it, but in his current class at MESA, he's struggling to connect in the way he did when he was working on the material on his own. So what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, that is a great question. I think what I realized it personally when I was developing I was taking my C courses. I just really fell in love with programming. I really loved the problem solving. You're given this really difficult task, and you have to break it down into all these different small steps and just slowly chip away until you can get it to finally work. And the relief of getting it to work, it's sort of this, I don't think volatile is a good word, but it's a very up and down relationship with programming sometimes, where you're really trying to work on it. You can't figure it out. You don't understand why it's not working. Everything seems to make sense. You step away for a few minutes, you come back, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I missed this. And then you solve it, and it's just it feels so good. And that feeling of working at something and figuring it out and problem solving it's just something that I really enjoyed. And I love also tinkering and the whole world of development. There's all kinds of tools that you get to experiment with. And maybe if we have time, I can show you, Vim, Emacs, different IDEs, and they're all really fun. They allow you to personalize yourself in a way where I'm very passionate about Vim or whatever it might be. And So, but to answer your question directly, it was the coding that really made me start to fall in love with it. And then just everything else that's come with it as I've dived into Linux, the free open source community. You know, I don't know what class you're taking, but that's only one single class and is probably not reflective of the entire world of computer science and software development. So and I'll give you an example. I took a discrete math class in Oregon State University and I absolutely hated it. I thought writing to do proofs and proving why math works was just the dumbest thing to me. I would rather apply math to practical issues than to prove why 2 + 2 is 2 + 2. You know, obviously that's a very small example or not even real, but I don't care about proofs. Let someone else do that. I want to use the math to apply to, you know, having a self-driving car, figure out where it is in space and things like that. So if it's a class like that, where it's just very abstract and you just have to do it, then just get it done. Just know that there's a lot of other parts of this whole computer science world or this whole software development world that is, and I'm going to talk about this. There's so much potential if you pursue this degree that you can go so many different routes. So hopefully it's just temporary and you can get over this and move on to a better class that you enjoy. So
and somewhat related to that, we have a student, Jennifer, who wants to know what's a good first programming class to take. And as department chair, I'm sorry, I have to step in here and, give my opinion.
You can take this.
Okay, so here at Mesa College, their CISC department, we have a 106 course, CISC 106, which is an introduction to computer science programming, and it really is outstanding in terms of laying a really good, strong foundation for understanding programming concepts and getting you to think critically and logically and all that, really to develop the kinds of skills and mindsets that will prepare you for success. And also another course I would recommend would be Python programming. Python is an excellent language to learn how to program because it's much simpler than most other languages. The syntax is very lean. It's a very sparse, elegant language. And so it lends itself better for people who have never programmed before. And you can actually, with actually just a few lines of code, you can create some really powerful programs. So it can be very satisfying in that regard. Having said that, there are lots of great languages out there. And Glenn, please share your opinions about that, if you would.
Yeah, so I will wholeheartedly agree with what Dwayne said. So I think I took that intro to computer science course at Mesa or at City, whichever one. So it was a great introduction and gives you a teaser, excuse me. And I think any course that teaches you either C, C++, because that's either object oriented or procedural, I think those are going to be pretty much what Dwayne said. And then with the Python, I couldn't agree more, because if everyone in my work environment learned or knew how to do Python, they could automate a lot of things that they're doing at work. And I love Python because, like Dwayne said, it's so easy to just get things done and to get things going. So I would say learn C, C++ for more the deep, conceptual, difficult parts of programming and developing a large piece of software, and then learn Python to just how to figure out to get things done. So yeah, hopefully that answered your question. So
yes.
So yeah, I'll move on to now something now with what Dwayne said about the service that Mesa provides about helping you get references and helping you find jobs. I will say, you know, some of you right now listening to this may work part-time or even work full-time while you're also going to school full-time, and you're thinking, how am I supposed to network and get out there when I'm spending so much time working, spending so much time doing my school? And I get it. I was there. I worked 3/4 time and I was taking 2 to 3 courses each term, and it was tough. But I would say if you can, just please try and make time to network. Please join a club. Please join a hackathon. Get involved in some way, shape, or form. Reach out to your services to help you get towards getting a job. Okay, so do make time to network. It is so important, so important, in my opinion. We'll move on to my Qualcomm experience. So, like I said, I reached out to my reference, and he helped me get an interview with one of his managers. And luckily, the manager thought I was competent enough to do the work that he needed. And that work involved simply so we have this lab, and the lab is full of hardware, and it's and there's the Qualcomm chips that go into mobile phones. We put them on these hardware, and they're all in like racks, many layers, and we test them. We basically imagine you've built a car, right? And you've built a prototype car, and you want to test the capability of this car. And so what you'll do is you put it on a test track, and you'll drive at 60 miles an hour, and you'll take a sharp turn. How does the car perform? Does it fall apart? Does it stay stable? Are there any little nuances that you've noticed? Okay, what about if the track, or what if temperature is 110 degrees and you're going 60 miles an hour or 100 miles an hour, or things like this? So we put the parts under extreme conditions and these high amounts of either high volume, or high temperature, low temperature, really, really cold, almost, basically beyond freezing. And how does the part perform, right? Because if there's situations, maybe the phone might be in extreme heat. How does the chip respond when it's in extreme heat? How does it respond when it's in extreme cold temperatures? So I worked with a team in supporting them in running the tests on those parts, changing the parts. We had a team that was also in India, so I would be a night shift. They would reach out to me, say, hey, can you change this part? We need to test these things, debug why these things are failing. And that's mostly what I did, which, to be honest, became very boring very quickly, because it was just changing parts. I felt like my potential was more than that. So I personally just started adding my own automation to the testing process. So when we would launch tests, we would, it was just somewhat tedious. You had to enter a lot of input form. And I just felt like this could be better. So I started using Python to automate the testing. And we use this tool called Jenkins, it's used quite a lot in the industry. You don't learn much about it in school, unfortunately, but in the industry, Jenkins is used quite a lot for automating testing and things like that, because it has a graphical user interface, which it's more approachable for people who are in the STEM field, but they may not be software developers, so they don't know how to code or write Python or things like that. So, but anyways, I used Python to communicate with Jenkins REST API to launch tests. And all of those things I learned from school. What is a REST API, interacting with it, making calls to it, and things like that. And I'll talk a little bit more in a bit about that. But so that was what I was doing as an engineering technician. It was pretty cool. And then eventually I got to the engineer position. And that is what I've been for quite a few months. And so time is crucial. So I won't, now, what I'm doing as an engineer, once I've gotten to a team, I started using C, C++ on a very big project. It was a lot of people on this team. There's about 20, 25 people all contributing to one single project. And it was a little bit overwhelming for me, because in school, unfortunately, you don't really get to work on a very large scale project. You work on these small piece ideas so that they can teach you concepts. But when you're in the industry, that's where you really learn how to work with a large code base. And that's what I wanted. It was really exciting. It was a lot to learn. And so, figure out ways that you can start working with large code bases. If some of you are very talented or understand these languages very well, look into open source development. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. So anyway, so I worked on a C, C++ project, and then another of our employee had to leave for a few months. So I had to take over something that they were working on, which was a web development app. So completely different, pretty much 180. And so for that, I had to use JavaScript, which React was the front end, React.js, which is a Facebook API, Node.js, which using Express for REST APIs. And if a lot of these words are going over your head, don't worry. I'm just kind of saying them to say them. So Node.js for the backend, for the server, using a REST API, and then using MySQL for communicating for sending queries to the database to save data that the users are using. Now, the tool that I'm building is an internal tool that only Qualcomm people are using. And that's where it's kind of cool about this whole industry is maybe you work for a heavy electrical engineering company like Qualcomm, but you could be a software developer in Qualcomm. You can develop on web apps or whatever it is for them. So there's a lot of opportunity within all of these different companies. So keep that in mind. So yeah, that's basically what I've been doing for the past few months, and who knows what I'll be doing the next few months. I've expressed to my manager, hey, I'm getting my master's and I might specialize in machine learning. Is there a potential that I could just be a part of any type of machine learning conversation that's happening within the team? So who knows what I'll be doing the next few months. That's what's kind of fun about Qualcomm, is it's all kinds of different things that I've done and I've learned so much already, and I really, really love it. So is there any questions about those types of things I've mentioned?
Well, we have a we have a few questions. So what are the most important things to prepare yourself for going into an interview? This is from Schuler, who says that it seems that it's always a struggle when trying to describe past experiences and how they are valuable in a work environment to interviewers. So what would your advice be for managing that interview?
Yeah, I will say I'm probably not the best person to ask, because I only interviewed once at Qualcomm, and that was enough. But from what I researched and what I read, it was, maybe read a little bit about the company. If you're genuinely interested in the company, read a little bit about it, what they do. And that way you can maybe drop a few little lines about the company itself. I would say if you have projects that you have completed, then talk about how you came about solving that, what was a really difficult moment in that program and how did you figure it out? Even if it's just simple as, I stepped away for an hour and I realized, I came back and realized the solution was right there. Or so I think having projects, even if it's just your school projects, those are not insignificant. You can talk about your school projects, how you worked on them. Did you work with teammates? What tools did you use at the time? Use those buzzwords. Oh, I was working on a C++ project that was implementing object-oriented philosophies. We were reusing virtual functions and things like that. And, so don't be afraid to use those big words, because they'll like that. So again, I'm not the best to ask because I've only interviewed once and I don't really like interviewing. So I'd rather just have the job and be done with it. So.
Yeah, there's also a question of, you mentioned the importance of networking, and so one question is wondering, are you a member of any professional organizations? And if so, what have you gotten out of them?
Professional organizations. I am not.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure what an example would be, but yeah, I am not yet. I think I'm still pretty young in this career to where I'm still getting my feet wet and still feeling where is my most amount of confidence. The big step that I would like to do next is to contribute to open source community. I feel like I'm getting good enough now where that's something I can do, where you're contributing to some GitHub repo or some favorite tool that you like. So no, I'm not part of a professional.
Yes,
yeah.
And actually, I'm sorry, I'm going to interject here too, to add to what you were just talking about in preparing yourself for the interview, that yes, your schoolwork can actually go a long way, and it's good for students to create a portfolio of sorts, so you can gather together your school projects and also maybe even have your own little play projects that you're doing off on the side, so that you're doing just for fun. So any kind of artifacts that you can show that demonstrate your understanding of programming and the skills that you have would be a great benefit.
And I hope I don't forget, but there's a side project that my friend and I worked on. Actually, I'll just say it now. So when I finished my bachelor's and I was working at Qualcomm, I was thinking, I actually wasn't really thinking about further schooling, but I was working with a friend on a Python StarCraft 2 bot. I'm a big fan of StarCraft 2. Ever since I saw Alpha Star and things like that, I was just really excited about, just everything they were doing. And which Alpha Star is part of DeepMind. Everybody should look up DeepMind because it's amazing. So Alpha Star is this bot basically that plays StarCraft 2, and I'm sure you've seen Dota bots, things like that, but it plays StarCraft 2. It beat pros. It was so amazing to watch that. And there's a whole StarCraft 2 community, like a Discord channel, things like that, where you can build a Python bot to play StarCraft 2. You can either hard code it, where you just program it all, every single if else condition, if units attacking here, then I do this, things like that. And I was working with my friend, and it was really, really fun. And I thought, well, I don't want to just hard code this. So how do I make this better? And I started looking into machine learning and how in some of the white papers that DeepMind used or wrote about AlphaStar and learned about all of these, a whole other world. And that gave me excitement to apply for my master's, and I might specialize in machine learning. So these side projects, find something that you're passionate about. Because the same friend, he likes stocks and he was trying, let's make a finance bot or something. I just wasn't that excited about it. I don't really care about finances. And we both love StarCraft. So we found something we were passionate about and we worked quite a lot on it. So we learned a lot. We got much better at Python. We got much better at a large project. And, and also you learn how to work with another person, because sometimes you butt heads on ideas where you think that this is the best idea and that person thinks that their idea is the best idea. And you have to find a middle ground in order to keep working and progressing forward, so it find a teammate, find someone that you can work with on a project that has a similar interest and work on a project together. That will be, and find something you really enjoy to do. That's what I can recommend for also side projects too.
Great, great. We have a student who's interested in embedded systems and wondering how one might go about trying to get into that particular segment of the industry. And have you done any embedded systems work?
I have not, but I work with it. There's people on my team that they develop firmware and drivers, and they work with the embedded system of the hardware that we are working with. So you'll probably want to find more like electrical engineering type companies or companies that have hardware. Think about, so Qualcomm is one of those companies, obviously, but there's a lot of, I guess maybe DARPA companies or something like that, or DoD, where you might be working with some, like there's NavWar here in San Diego. But I would say try and find hardware companies, because that's what the embedded systems you'll be working with. I believe most of them use C and some of them use C++. I know some of them right now use Verilog, which is another very like minimal, it's very close to assembly language. So yeah, you'll have to just look for hardware companies, and then you'll be working with embedded systems that way, if that's something you're interested in. And definitely look for the Arduino class that hopefully will come back in the spring, because that was basically working coding, or maybe just buy an Arduino kit from Amazon and start using Arduino C, and that'll be basically be very simple embedded programming. So yeah.
Yeah, I can confirm that there is a lot of embedded system development in the DoD
Okay,
here locally. So in my experience, I worked on a good amount of that as well.
Nice.
We have another question. I think perhaps hoping that you might go into more detail about projects that you created before being accepted as a job, for a job.
Before Qualcomm, I just had school projects. I didn't have anything, but for the masters, when I did apply, I elaborated on the Python project, the StarCraft 2 bot that I built. And I think that helped me get in, just because they saw that I was interested. They saw that I was already working on something on my own. So yeah, I would say, yeah. I think.
And as someone who actually did interview and recommend candidates for hire myself, I know that what you describe is actually very typical. So it's not so much the project itself, although certainly if there's some complexity to it, something interesting about the project, that's great. But it's excitement that the candidate has about the work that they did. When you look in their eyes and you see the joy, the pride, the excitement, that's when you realize this is a person who would fit well with this company, because they're doing this work not to get a paycheck, but because they're just so excited about it.
Yeah. So I see that we have about 18 minutes, so I'll maybe hold questions for a little bit, and then I will knock out the rest of my notes, and then maybe we can answer the rest of the questions, or any more questions.
Please.
Yeah. Okay. So now I want to talk to you guys about internship versus contract versus full-time employment. So the internship is pretty obvious, right? You apply at an internship at Amazon. You'll likely work maybe 3 months on a single project. You'll present on it, and then you'll bounce and go back to school. And hopefully, if you liked it, or if they liked you, you'll come back next year and either keep working on that project or work on a completely new project. That's basically what Qualcomm does. And I think most big companies do that, is a few months of employment, work on a project and present on it and then leave. So pretty straightforward. And as far as getting the interviews or getting the internships, again, either a reference network or you'll just have to apply, and do the whole grind, the brute force method. So now contracts are interesting because it seems like it's become much more popular in the industry. And I don't know how I feel about it quite yet, but typically contracts are a 2-year agreement. And what they are is, let's say Qualcomm, they want to hire people, but only for a small project. They don't need to hire someone for long term. So they'll ask another company, some hiring company, say, hey, find us some contract employees and, we'll give you a cut and that we'll call it a deal. And typically those contracts last from 1 to 3 years. And then you have to take about a 3-month break afterwards. Now, the problem with the contracts though, especially if you're trying to establish yourself in the field and you want to make a career of this, is that you lack inclusivity with the company. So yeah, they'll try and say, oh, you're included with everyone, blah, 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 but you don't have the same amount of resources and you don't have the same amount of benefits. You don't get flex time off or any of these cool paid time off options. You do get paid decently well, and you can get paid overtime. So if you do work a lot, they'll definitely pay you. But to me, it's not as good as the full-time employment. If you have to take a contract, then that's fine. That's what I did I didn't care. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll take a contract, whatever. I don't know anything about this industry. Just let me in there. And so I took the contract and eventually went into full-time employment. And that is the benefit, right? Is if you take the contract and they like you and there's a position open, then it's quite likely that you'll get converted to full-time employment. So to me, a contract can either be like a long-term internship, or if you're much older, like I was working with some other contract employees, they were much older. They didn't want to work full-time with Qualcomm because that's not what they liked anymore. They liked the 2-year contracts and they liked the 3-month break and things like that. So it's to each their own. If that's the style you want to live, maybe you want to work hard for 2 years and then take 3 months off and go travel around the world, whatever. So but if you want to make a career of it, try and get full-time employment as soon as possible, because to me, that's the golden ticket. You get all the benefits, you get the health insurance, the 401k match, the inclusivity, even tuition reimbursement, depending on the company. That is I think really, really great. I think the 90s are gone where people used to think corporate was boring or whatever, but I think it's really fun. What I'm working on and who I'm working with, they're just like, I'm working with people who have a lot of doctorates. One of them has a doctorate in astrophysics. One of them has a doctorate in ML. And I mean, you have the potential to work with just really interesting, sophisticated people. And you definitely should try and go for the full-time employment if you can pull it off. Now with that, startups, I think since you're young and that's something that really intrigues you and you watch Silicon Valley and you think that's funny and cool, then you should try and go for it. I think, go up to San Fran, find a startup and try and work up there. Personally, it wasn't for me. It's not what I wanted to do because it can be fairly volatile, but you can learn a tremendous amount of things from my understanding. I don't have any experience with startups, but that was my observation. And my understanding is if you get hired at a startup and it succeeds, you can make a lot of money and you can learn a tremendous amount of things. But know that roughly 90% of them fail, 10% within the first year, and about 70% in the next 2 to 5 years. So it's almost like opening a new restaurant, right? But you're young, you can take those risks and it might work out really well and it might be really fun. So startups might be something good for you. So I'll talk about just school, because some of you, since you're in this community college position, you're probably wondering, well, can I just get a job with community college credits, or do I really need that bachelor's, or do I really need that master's? And I would say personally, and I asked 2 of my professors before I made the decision, I personally think that getting a bachelor's is better than not having one, especially when it comes to this STEM field. I think managers, they want to see that coupon, they want to see that stamp on your resume, because it shows that you've completed stuff, and especially if your GPA is higher. That is a big plus. Even when I was at Qualcomm and I'm interacting with people, you know, they ask a question, oh, where'd you go to school? You know, so so yeah, I would say if you can do it, if you can afford it, and if you can make it happen, even if you can't afford it, if you have to take loans out, the return of investment might be worth it. For me, it was very much worth it. You know, I went $25,000 into debt, but I know that this field will pay that back tenfold by the time, within the amount of time it even took me to finish the degree. So you just have to calculate if it's really worth it for you. You know, if you think if you're a young whippersnapper and you really know your stuff, you can totally get a job by having a great portfolio and showing that you know your stuff. But having a bachelor's is really great conversation starter, we'll say. Now, as far as where do you go to get your degree, it seems that Qualcomm is a little bit more biased towards UCSD from the overall tone, is that people seem to view UCSD as a higher caliber, more elite. And I actually think they have a really great computer science program. I think it's one of the top ones in the nation. But people like the elite level schools if you can do that, but I don't think it's a make or break. I went to Oregon State University. It was an online school, which, you know, even saying the word online, people think that it's some for-profit school. But now that more universities are creating, more of these big elite universities are creating online programs, it will become, I think, a pretty normal standard where, oh, I got my online degree from USC or UCSD, you know, and no one will care. But so, you know, to summarize, the elite colleges will be nice if you can get Berkeley or something like that. Managers will like that straight up, you know, but it's not a make or break, because if you do have a reference, if you do have a network, then you can show them what you have and what you've completed. Because if you go to Berkeley and you don't do anything with it and you don't have any projects to present, then that's not better than someone who went to a community college and has tons of projects and has worked on something that they are very passionate about. So for me as a manager, I would hire the person who put in the work of getting a project done than if they went to Berkeley and they're pretentious about it. So just keep that in mind when you're trying to figure out where to go for a bachelor's. If you can just do SDSU, then that's fine. Just work hard, get projects done, and I think it'll work out. Now, I commented on this a little bit. Now, what can you do with just the Bachelor's of Science in Computer Science? Tremendous amount of things. So I liked producing music as a hobby growing up, and a lot of that is software. I even looked into developing software for music production companies, and maybe later on I'll do that. But that's one avenue I could go down just because I was passionate about music. Another avenue, if you love environmental causes, you can go into, one of my friends works at a company where they're working with, they're developing software to solve environmental issues. I know that some people even use it for tracking animals and, you know, things like that. And you can go into finance. My friends and I, we like to watch racing, and there's applications and software that all of the teams use to analyze and get information from these cars so that they can make decisions on how to win the race. So there's so many tools and so much software everywhere. You can work in any field pretty much, and something that maybe you're interested in. So definitely think critically about where you can work, and you never know if the small niche company will be the one that you immediately get hired in, because nobody's really going to do that. They don't really know much about it. So I think there's tremendous things that you can do with a computer science degree. So I wouldn't worry too much about, oh, well, this will be worth it. You know, I think computer science has a pretty long standing stability in the next few years. I'm sure you can look up statistics on it, but I feel like I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. So let me take a little drink.
Glenn, if you don't mind, I ask a quick question.
Yeah.
Students wondering what, you compared SDSU with UCSD, and we're wondering, well, why is SDSU considered lesser? Why? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, my understanding is that SDSU is more a teaching school and UCSD is more a research school. So which they both have their pros and cons. SDSU, with it being a teaching school, you might have more personal contact with your teachers, and they might actually help you learn things better and have more interactivity with that. I think, unfortunately, I don't know if you're new to San Diego, but I feel like the overall tone about SDSU is it's a little bit more of a party school, and so people may not take it as seriously. I personally don't know much about their computer science program itself. While I understand that UCSD is regarded to be a little bit higher because it's, I guess, people are a little bit more serious over there. That these are just the overall personal feelings I've heard from other people. I've been here about 6 years, so that's my personal feeling. And again, it's really what you make of it. If SDSU is what you can afford and what you realistically can do, then you got to make the best of it. I mean, I went to some random online school in Oregon State, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and I'd like to confirm what you just said is absolutely true, and also quickly share my perspective. I have friends and acquaintances who are professors both at SDSU and UCSD. I personally went to UCSD, and I also teach at UCSD. And generally, yes, UCSD is a more theoretical based in terms of what you end up learning there. If you're getting into hardware applications, embedded systems, things like that, that would probably be stronger to go through them. On the other hand, SDSU, like you say, it's more of a teaching university. It's really good in terms of preparing you for software engineering and coding really well and prolifically at a high level. So they really, frankly, you're good with either. They're both excellent institutions, and so you wouldn't be making a mistake choosing one over the other. But yeah, I mean, so there are some differences, but not any differences that I think are really critical or significant.
Yeah, and I would say that if your GPA is really, really good at SDSU, let's say it's 4.0, and at UCSD it might be a 2.5, they would probably be more excited to see the 4.0 at SDSU just because that you learned what it was being taught. So, but yeah, those are great notes, Dwayne. I'll keep that in mind for future when people ask. Now, maybe your question is, okay, yeah, I've got the bachelor's, cool. Do I go for my master's? You don't have to. It won't add much to your, let's say, income or your hiring potential. My understanding, my reference told me straight up, if I had a master's and applied for the job, then it would maybe bump up my income by 10,000 or so, which seems like a lot, but that's not too much in relation to how much you get from just having a bachelor's, right? So if you're wondering, okay, I'm just going to do my bachelor's and then my master's and call it done, really, you probably just go for your bachelor's, get that done, and then get a job, and then think about what you want to possibly do for your master's. However, if you want to go for your doctorates, I personally feel, and I'm sure Dwayne and a lot of your teachers who are in the field can comment on this, I think just go for the doctorates as soon as possible, especially in this field, because if you love the depth of this curriculum, or you want to go really, really deep on machine learning, or really, really deep on self-driving cars or computer vision, or, and I only say those because they're the most relevant in my mind, many, many topics you can study in your doctorates, then do it as quickly as possible, because you are going to be such a high asset to other companies. For example, my friend, he was pursuing his doctorates in machine learning, in natural language processing specifically. He did an internship at Amazon using his while he was doing his doctorates. He did an internship at Amazon, paid him very, very well. And then once he left, they eventually offered him a full-time position, and he ditched it, or he ditched his doctorates to go there because it was really great pay, and what he was working on, he was passionate about. So but the benefit of pursuing the doctorates, and this is the key point I don't want to miss, is that you get lab time. Lab time is extremely crucial when you're developing difficult concepts. When you're pursuing your master's, you may not get as much lab time because the professors I shouldn't say they don't care, but if they have a master's student that wants lab time and they have a doctorate student that wants lab time, and they can only give it to one person, they're going to give it to the doctorate because that is their field, that is what they're pursuing, and then they have the chance of giving back to the university, things like that. So if you're very interested in this field and you want to go deep, then go for your doctorates. There's even sometimes like a fast track, once you get bachelor's, then you could just quickly go into your doctorates and pursue something like that. I would say if you don't want to do your doctorates and you want to further educate yourself, then I think a master's has its place, because your work might pay for it. Eventually my work will pay for it. I have to be with them a year, but they're eventually going to pay for my tuition. Saves me some bucks. And then you get to learn something interesting about some other field. So like right now I'm in a class where it's self-driving cars, and you're going to be doing computer vision. There's algorithms that we're using, particle filters, Kalman filters, and it's really, really fascinating stuff as to how people, whoever thought of this, figured out a way of getting a car to know where it is in space. I mean, that blows my mind. That is amazing. And it's fun to learn. It is stressful to do both, but it's fun to learn. And, what else would I do? Watch some Netflix show, so those are my opinions about pursuing further education. And I see we just have a few minutes left, which is perfect, because I want to just comment on life, right? Social and emotional intellect, AKA soft skills. They are very important. I think I'm still new to where I don't know how important, because I say this because you can be, if you deliver high quality work, if a manager delivers high quality work, but they're not the nicest person, it's not that big of a deal. Because the manager above him or above them, he or she, they will only care about the quality of work that they're outputting, right? So, and that will keep going up all the way up to the chain, and each manager is going to care about the quality of work that's coming out. Now, if you are very, very rude and very disrespectful and all of these things, then it's likely you're not going to last long. But just try to learn some soft skills. And what I mean is having empathy, being compassionate, trying to understand why someone might be struggling with something, or learning to ask for things from people without being presumptuous, or, like I said, when I was working with my friend, we both think that our idea is the best, but how do you come to a middle ground, right? You can't just yell at this person and say, oh, this idea is way better, let's just do this idea. That's not going to fly. You have to think, okay, well, I really think that this idea would work here because of this and this and this. So think about soft skills. Think about how you're interacting with your fellow peers, and how you're communicating with them, and know that those are going to be important skills later on, because maybe you may want to go the managerial route, which involves interacting with my manager has 25 different people on his team, and he has one-on-one meetings with them, and he runs scrums and has to deal with a lot of different personalities. And some people get heated, some people don't. He just keeps cool, calm, and collected the whole time. And I value that from him. I think it helps the team. So just know that it's not all about your technical skill. If you want to go the technical route, then maybe you can be a bit more rude and just deliver high quality work. But I think the soft skills will be a nice little cherry on top to your career. So that was the main. I have some references that I think would be useful, but I don't know if I can share them somehow, but I can also answer the questions directly, but I see that it is 1 o'clock, so we can either go right to question and answer, or I can answer those questions.
Yeah, so we have a student who is wondering, how useful do you think social media like LinkedIn is for networking? I assume for trying to get in, develop connections for jobs.
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. And I do think LinkedIn has some legitimacy somewhere in the whole cog, right? Because I just had an employee, a fellow coworker that I connected with, who just left for Apple, and I invited him on LinkedIn, and I have his personal number, and I have that contact now, and he works at Apple. And that's, for me, that might be another big fish that I want to take on. And so I have that network now. And then I also had the manager who hired me left for a different company, and I got his network, and he sent an email, hey, add me on LinkedIn if you'd like. And so I added him, and now I have that contact. So I think I think it is useful, and I think you should have a profile. Try to make it look as professional as possible. Because my friend who was working at Amazon as a machine learning scientist was headhunted through his LinkedIn by Qualtrics, which is another sort of data mining company. And if he had not had the LinkedIn, would he have gotten headhunted? Probably, maybe not. So I do think LinkedIn is important. Put your school projects on there. Put where you're going to school. If you go to hackathons or whatever, maybe you'll find some LinkedIn's, and you'll develop your own little social network, your professional social network. And I do think it'll pay off.
I would add, with my experience with LinkedIn, is that whether you get a connections for jobs or not, it's also yet another window onto the industry. So you can actually see what other people are actively working on, and realizing it's like, oh, that's an area of the industry I didn't realize existed.
Yeah.
And, so every little bit can make a difference. Are there any other social media platforms that you might consider recommending?
I think Twitter is quite popular in the tech field, because I don't really use Twitter, but my friends, they follow a lot of tech heavy people, and that's how they stay up to date with what's going on in the industry. So my machine learning scientist friend, he subscribes to all of these natural language processing researchers, and they'll tweet, oh, we just released this paper. And so he's got his pulse, or his finger on the pulse of the machine learning world. He knows what's most relevant, what's coming out, what's hot, things like that. So I think Twitter is great for that, because you can follow who you want to follow, and you can curate your own world. And I think Reddit is also a great source. And that's one of the references I made or had was there's a CS career questions subreddit. Hopefully all of you are familiar with Reddit. I feel like that's like a given. So if you're not, it's Reddit. But yeah, Reddit is a great resource. There's CS career questions. You can see all kinds of questions. A lot of people post on, a lot of the big five and things like that. So Reddit, Twitter, and LinkedIn, I think, are probably the most valuable. I don't think Instagram really is about tech. They're more about, whatever. I don't think TikTok, I have no idea. And obviously Facebook is just nothing but parents now, so I don't think anybody uses that. I'm not sure what else. Yeah.
No, that's great. That's great advice.
Yeah.
I have another question. This sounds like an in-house question. I guess someone who works at Qualcomm. Steven says that he's been at Qualcomm in RF hardware, their RF hardware department, for 7 years. He's worked closely with software on a daily basis, and wants to transfer to RF SW or software related departments. And so I guess he has some similar experience to you, and he wanted to know how to go about approaching the iOS transfer from hardware to software.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's cool, Stephen. It's nice to meet you. Maybe we'll cross paths. But so this is where the reference, I wasn't sure if I wanted to share this story, but this is where the reference came into play. I didn't really apply for iOS. I was an engineering technician, and my contract was going to end in a few months. And so I needed to apply to jobs, because when I spoke with my manager, he said, well, we're not sure if we can bring you on to full-time, because we don't really have a position that's open. And I said, okay, well then I have to apply to jobs. And I had an offer, and I went to my manager and said, hey, I will have to take this offer if there's nothing, I'd really love to stay with Qualcomm, and I like what I'm doing, or, I like this overall team that I'm under. What can we do? And then basically just said nothing. And I was like, all right, fine, then I'll go to this job. And then when I had said that, it moved up to my reference, and my reference reached out to me immediately and said, hey, what's going on? Explain to me the situation. And I explained the whole situation. He's like, okay, we'll find you something. And he moved me to one team. And then for some reason they didn't have a or that was even a conditional full-time employment. I was frustrated, and I expressed my frustration saying, hey, I denied that other offer because I thought I was going to get full-time at this new position. And then so that reference helped me move to another position where I did officially get full-time. So this is a comment on have a reference because it can be so useful and so helpful. And I did not reach out to this person at all anytime, because I didn't want to feel like I was abusing that potential or that possibility. But I learned that day that if you have a reference, definitely use them when it is really, really important. If you're in a sticky situation, reach out to them and express them, hey, can you help me in any way? But so Stephen, sorry for that digression, but hopefully other people got advice from that or insight from that, where, you know, if things aren't going well with where you're at, try to get another job or get another offer and use it as leverage to get a better position with where you're at. If you like where you're at, but they're dragging their feet or they're not taking any action, then try and find a job elsewhere, bring it to the table and say, hey, this is, you know, I want to find something here, but this is my offer. So, so the iOS situation, I have not done, but I know that can be pretty good. I don't know if maybe your HR rep might be able to help you with that, but yeah, so hopefully that's, and I want to add one more thing. Stephen, I think I've answered your question as best I could, but the other comment I wanted to add was, oh, I just lost it actually. It'll come back. We can move on to another question.
Well,
Thanks, Glenn.
Related to,
no problem.
Related to being able to land a job, I think we got a lot of questions about what's necessary in terms of academic qualification stuff, and so I'm going to share just another one. I think you spoke a little bit to this, but I want to make sure that there's a little bit of details to this that I think we can address still. Jeffrey is wondering, would you recommend finishing your associate's degree in computer science and then going to a boot camp for 6 to 8 months, like at UCSD, to get a junior development job, or is a bachelor's degree really needed in order to succeed?
I wouldn't say needed to succeed, but it definitely helps. I think you could go that route, but again, having that stamp of a bachelor's on your resume is really significant. And I think if someone had applied to a boot camp, if two people apply, one is the associates and then the boot camp, and then the other one has the bachelor's degree, I'm pretty sure that a manager would probably pick the bachelor's degree. Of course, if the boot camp was very specific to the job that you're applying for, then maybe it'll work out better. And if maybe the code interview you perform well, but personally, I think it would be a better return of investment to go for the bachelor's, because you've already gotten your associates. You only have about 2 years left. You know, if you're going to do a boot camp for 6 to 8 months, why not just go another 12 months or so to get I can't do math, to get that 2 year, or to finish off the bachelor's in computer science. I think it's more worth it. But that's just personally me.
Yeah, and I'd like to share my own experience with that, and also experience of friends and colleagues that I'm aware of, that yes, the degrees are important. The associate's degree is important. The bachelor's is important. If you go on and get a master's and PhD, yes, all of those are really important. However, at the end of the day, what an interviewer wants to know is, can you do the job?
Yeah.
And if you can convince them that you can do the job, and you're just totally excited about this field in general, they're going to hire you. And which is to say, you actually don't need a degree to get a job. I got into the industry personally, and I did not have a degree. I did go back, and I got my degrees, and so I know both ends, that you can get in without the degree. Yet the degree is important. It will open doors much more easily than if you don't have those. And so that's why I go back to having a portfolio, because if you have projects and if you're doing work on your own that you can bring into the interview, that can land you that job. Maybe you only have your associates, right?
Yeah.
But then you can get a job, and frankly, having a job, being able to work in the industry while you're completing your bachelor's or your master's, that would be better than having a boot camp thing that you're going to try to accelerate things. So that's my advice. So
yeah, I had a comment on that. Yeah, I can't remember either. But no, I with what Dwayne said, I very much agree, and I think that's what attracted me to computer science as well, or I should say the software world, is that if you have chops, if you can deliver, if you can do if you can code and code well and all these things, but you don't have a degree, you can still get a job because people just care about what you're capable of. I think that was my favorite thing, because a lot of other fields, oh, if you don't have this accreditation, you can't do this, or if you don't have this degree, you can't do this. But if in the software world, if you can show what you've done, it's kind of like the creative world where you show what you, who cares if you have an art degree? What matters is how good is your art, how unique are your ideas and how well thought out are they. And I think the same applies with the computers or the software development world, is how good are your ideas and how well can you code. So,
Yes, yes.
yeah.
Also know another topic that is of interest to more than a few, I think. Can you relay how the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic has been on operations at Qualcomm?
Yes, COVID, and I just remember I was going to state real quick.
Oh,
I
yes.
will say though that the bachelor's, I think, for me, it also gives me more concepts that I wouldn't have gotten from boot camp. So, just as simple as data structures and algorithms, once you learn that and you have a class on it, you see it everywhere, and so I think the bachelor's is simply worth it just to learn about computer science and becoming a really good developer. A boot camp will just teach you how to do something really specific, but I think the bachelor's gives you this foundation of like, okay, now I can go down a certain path that I might find really interesting, and it gives me the theory, and then you can apply. So just wanted to comment that. But now, as far as COVID, I was really, really lucky. Qualcomm was extremely helpful and considerate, and we could work from home pretty much immediately. Fortunately, well, my engineering technician, I still had to go into the lab, so I was, I had to really, wear gloves, mask up, take temperature testing. I didn't have to get regular testing, whether I was exposed to COVID or not. Excuse me, but I, each time I went into the lab, and I was going in pretty much every day for about 6 months or so when COVID started, and, very limited amount of people, only a certain amount of people could be in the lab, and things like that. Unfortunately, I kept my job, obviously. And then once I moved into a remote role, I was able to just work from home, and then we would go in once a week. And that's what we've been doing for about the past years. Everyone goes in pretty much once a week, and then that way it allows us to interact, because whiteboarding solutions is really effective. And so when you're working with another teammate and you're trying to figure out how to solve something, you can whiteboard it and talk about it in person. And it's very effective over remote conversation like this. So, yeah. But yeah, I was lucky. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. It is all wonderful information, Glenn. Some students are wondering if they could add us on LinkedIn or not.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And okay, well, great. And I'm on LinkedIn. If people want to sync up with me, that's fine. I will say, however, I'm not really all that active on LinkedIn.
Same.
But
yeah,
I'm happy to accept you, and
Yeah.
Who knows, I might be able to help you out in some way. But
Same. Yeah. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you
go
off.
ahead.
I wanted to add, so my email is basically my name at gmail.com. So it's GLENN and then OBERLANDER at gmail.com. If you have any question about anything, either anything that I've discussed or just the future, hey, I'm applying to this job and I'm not sure what to do, or I have 2 offers, I'm not sure what to do, just reach out to me, and I'll try to help as best I can. And and you never know, if I'm in a hiring position 2 to 3 years from now, reach out to me, say, hey, Glenn, this is what I've worked on, this is what I have. I went to this little meeting that you have, and I won't know you, unfortunately, but it can be an easy way to start to get an interview, so just keep my contact in mind. And when you feel ready, reach out to me and say, hey, this is what I have to offer. So, yeah. And I do have some of the other questions I can answer if you'd like.
Yes,
please.
To
answer those, but.
Although, I don't know if you have, I think I've covered all the ones that I
do from that piece of, the docs. What trends?
Oh,
do you
yes,
see
yes.
developing?
Okay. I'm sorry. I was just looking at the student ones. So yes, let me quickly go to those. Oh, and I've got the wrong browser there. Hold on. What happened to that page that I was at?
I have it pulled up if you'd like. I can read the question.
Okay, yeah,
aloud.
go right ahead.
Okay. Yeah.
It's probably
So
easier that way.
Yeah. So I did answer some of the other questions in the paper. I just removed what I didn't answer. But how did you choose to get into your field? And if you could do it all over again, would you choose the same career path? Absolutely, I would do it all over again. I wish I did it way sooner because I've always been into computers. I built several computers growing up, played video games and stuff. I honestly just didn't know that this could be a career at the time. I was a bit naive to it, and I was very interested in a different field, like completely different field at the time. So, but I would definitely do it again. As far as what chose me to get into it when I wanted to go back for a second career was, well, to be honest, I wanted to find a stable career. I wanted to find something that I knew would pay me well, but also where I could do anywhere in the world. Because my previous career, it was very localized. I had to do it where I was, and I developed a reputation, and it was in the health field. So you have to develop a whole community. And if you leave that community, your income completely dies. But with this career, I can go anywhere in the world, literally. I mean, so I think that's really awesome. That was really important to me. And I went in for the money, but I stayed for the joy of coding and the problem solving and the tinkering. It really, and discovering Linux, and it just really blossomed for me, to add a pretty word. But so the next question was, what trends do you see developing over the next few years in your industry? I'm sure we all know this, but machine learning is pretty much like sriracha hot sauce right now, where everybody just puts it on everything. I mean, even in my team, we're figuring out how can we apply machine learning to what we're working on. And you might see our tool and be like, there's no way. What could you possibly use it? So definitely machine learning has become very, very popular, which may be good, maybe bad. Some people they don't fully understand what machine learning is, and they're thinking that they can just use it on anything. So, try to learn it first before you start talking about it. Personally, I think the free and open source FOSS, that whole world, to me, I think in the next 5 to 10 years is really going to be quite approachable from anyone. To me, so the entire world runs on Linux. And what I mean is the servers that serve, the servers that are displaying our video right now are probably Linux. I don't think there's any I don't think there's any server in the world that's not Linux based. And if you don't know what Linux is, just Google it, and Linux. And the whole world runs on Linux, so all the servers, everything like that. But then the world interfaces with Windows and Mac and things like that. Or I'm using Linux right now, but I'm a little more educated, so I can do this. But I think the free and open source world will become more popular and more prevalent as more and more kids are learning about Linux and the potential that it has. I would highly suggest that you just try to learn as much Linux as quickly as possible. It is so fun once you start getting involved with it. But yeah, and then I think self-driving and autonomy, well, I know that self-driving is going to save millions of lives. If you're against self-driving cars, I think you should really reconsider your opinion or your thoughts, because I think that has, in the next 20 years, that has the potential of saving millions of lives. So, obviously you have Tesla, but you have Waymo, which is an Alphabet company that's developing self-driving car, and it's more about rideshare for them. Obviously you have Uber, which they had an incident, so I don't know if they're still working on it, but even Apple is developing a self-driving car. So something to keep in mind, if you're interested in computer vision, if you really think self-driving cars are really, really cool, I do think that there's going to be quite a popular world for that. And Dwayne, I don't know if you've noticed any trends in the industry, but that's the main things I've noticed. If you wanted to comment.
Yeah, I concur with what you just said. And actually, I really quickly, before we run out of time, I want to tie up some loose ends here with students who might be wondering about course offerings. And what you said about Linux, I cannot overemphasize that. Most people are completely surprised. They're astounded that the best and arguably most secure operating system that you can have and use is Linux.
Yep.
It's better than Windows. It's better than OS X, and it's completely free.
Yeah.
And it's like you can't argue with that. And if you're a nerd, it is like the the most awesome playground
Yeah,
because
it is. Yeah.
everything is there, and it's
Yeah.
like there's no end to the amount of play and fun that you can enjoy.
Yeah.
At Mesa College, we currently offer a Linux course, so you can take a course in
Oh,
Linux
cool.
and learn the operating system. And so yes,
That's
you
fantastic.
should all be doing that. We also, I think, we mentioned Python. We're offering, we're actually starting to offer two sections of Python each quarter. We're developing actually a data analytics informatics track with Python. So
Oh, nice.
we should have a intermediate Python coming probably by fall, not this coming fall, but either the following the coming fall or the following spring, I should say. So in other words, 2022 fall and 2024 spring, that will have intermediate, and we also hope to have a advanced Python course coming up shortly after that. Also, if you're interested in the embedded programming, microcontroller programming, that's CISC 071. We probably won't be offering that until next academic year, so either next fall or the spring following that fall. But yeah, so we do have opportunities for those students out there. If you're going to be with us for a little bit longer, you should be able to pick up on those.
And I will comment, I would do your best to take advantage of that, because you are in a smaller class. It's more intimate, and you have more one-on-one with a professor who has a wealth of knowledge. And and when right now in my master's class, there's, I don't know, potential of like 600 people in one single class. And I mean, they literally don't have enough resources to give us one-on-one or anything like that. So, and understandably, I'm in my master's, I'm an adult now, I should be able to figure this stuff out. But you're younger now and you're just learning this. Just take advantage of these courses as much as you can that are offered at Mesa. And I personally really enjoyed them. I'm not trying to because they're interviewing me, I'm not trying to sell them, but I really enjoyed the courses. I think San Diego Community Colleges is really well funded, and they do a great job. And I really enjoyed it. It was very helpful for me. So
great.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Glenn. It's really been extremely informative.
Yeah.
And really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us and talk about your experience and all the things that you're involved in.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate you guys making the time for me and setting this all up. Again, those of you listening, please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. LinkedIn, whatever. I don't use it that much either, but feel free to reach out to me with any questions.
I can tell you that in our intermediate Python, you will learn how to connect to social media services, sites, and be able to scrape those sites for data. So
Nice.
that's one of the many cool things you learn with the Python language.
That is really, that's going to be, that's cool. The future, man.
Yes. So again, thank you so much.
But real quick, the last little bit. So this background is not pointless or some random space. I mean, I love space, obviously, but that helicopter right there actually had a Qualcomm chip in it. So it's the first of the first companies to be on Mars. Just throwing that out there. I thought that was really cool, and it makes me feel proud to be part of a company like that. So yeah.
That is sweet.
Yeah.
That is very sweet.
Yeah.
So, yeah. As Alan Kay said, the best way to predict the future is to invent it.
Yeah, that's what it's exciting. I love this field. There's just so much stuff. I mean, we could talk endlessly about it. There's so much stuff you can do, and it's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right. Thank you all.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Appreciate it, everybody.
Yeah.
Take
great
care.
meeting you.
Thank you for attending.
Absolutely. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.